Too far apart to have happened on impact.
The crew didn't know it was coming. Air traffic control didn't know it was coming. And then all of a sudden, the aeroplane was in pieces in the sky.
Investigators scrutinize the debris for evidence that another airplane collided with Flight 870. They find nothing. Speculation about a missile strike only grows stronger.
Certo.
Certainly there were many reports. The newspapers, the television, the media talked about it a lot.
Hanno ben parlato.
Okay.
Investigators hope a detailed analysis of the radar can give them some answers. They want to know if there was anything else in the skies that could have brought down the plane. They contact John McAdoo of the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board.
All right, let's see what we can see.
McAdoo is well suited for the job. He's a former Navy pilot and a radar expert.
There is an obligation for the United States to help other countries with their investigation of an aircraft accident in their country if it was a United States manufactured aircraft. In this case, it was a Douglas DC-9.
He studies an enhanced version of Flight 870's radar track, one that shows more detail than the air traffic controller could see.
I received their radar printout, which included the beacon code track of this DC-9.
Looks like this is where it broke up. Here are the pieces here.
Radar works by bouncing radio waves off objects. When a plane breaks apart, each piece creates its own signal or return. Air traffic controllers tune their radar to detect airliners, but radar can be adjusted to display other objects.
I want to get a closer look at this.
You eventually start getting more than one radar return, so there's plenty to see.
McAdoo sees no sign of a mid-air collision.
Now, what have we here?
But he does notice something unusual. There are 3 unidentified radar blips to the west of Flight 870. McAdoo reaches a startling conclusion.
At that altitude and this kind of speed, I'd say that was a high-speed jet.
He could see traces of another airplane, which was not a civil plane.
Coming from the west, at that time of day, they'd never see them coming.
This unidentified object came out of the sun, which is a standard fighter pilot technique.
Blinded by the sun, the DC-9 pilots would have had little chance to spot an incoming jet.
I told him that it was possible that something was fired from another aircraft.
It was quite clear that it was a fighter shooting a missile.
McAdoo's analysis makes it more likely than ever that a fighter jet was flying near the DC-9. 3 weeks after the crash, new evidence comes to light. The wreckage of a Libyan fighter jet is found in the mountains of southern Italy. The discovery raises more suspicion and adds fuel to the missile theory.
In my opinion, there were French fighters taking off from the base of Solenzara in the island of Corsica, intercepting the Libyan planes, and there was an act of war.
For reporter Andrea Purgatori, the crashed fighter confirms his belief that Flight 870 was an unintended casualty in a secret skirmish between NATO and Libyan jets.
Were the French firing to the Libyans or the Libyans firing to the French? This is difficult to say, but then the French fighters tried to chase the Libyan plane until it crashed on the mountains of Calabria in the southern part of Italy.
The aircraft disappeared. There was an explosion. Was it a missile? Certainly, I thought, yeah, this is going to be distinctly possible.
So far, the evidence for a missile strike is circumstantial. Then investigators get a lucky break. They come across an intriguing clue, a piece of shrapnel embedded in the body of a passenger. If they can identify where it came from, it might tell them what caused the explosion.
There's something I would like you to see.
Italian investigators travel to Washington with the piece of metal.
Welcome to Washington, sir.
Grazie.
Is this it?
Yes.
They ask the NTSB's John McAdle to help identify it.
Okay, let's take a look at it.
It was about that size of a pen, slightly curved, okay, flat on one side.
Now, where are you from?
It was found in the thigh of one of the passengers. At NTSB, we had structural schematics of the entire DC-9. And based on what I thought about missiles, I started looking at the middle of the aircraft.
The type of metal hints that it's from outside the cabin.
We're going to need to look at the wheel wells.
We went and looked in both wheel wells and matched this piece of metal up with the curved ribbing, unique ribbing on this panel.
Next.
Under the right wheel well, not the left wheel well. It wouldn't match the left wheel well.
Bingo. Say the jet fired the missile from here. It would explode as soon as it got close, about here. That would drive the shrapnel, including our piece from the wheel well, into the cabin.
So to me, it was conclusive information.
My reaction after John McAdle's conclusions was, I was right.
Investigators send pieces of wreckage to the lab to test for explosives. The analysis confirms an explosion. The debris is coated with trace amounts of TNT. But the result doesn't prove a missile brought down the plane. It's just as possible the explosives came from a bomb.
TNT is not only used by the military. I wouldn't say it's easy to get hold of, but somebody who's determined enough could get hold of it.
5 weeks after the Itavia disaster, Italians are shocked by another tragedy. A bombing at the Bologna railway station kills 85 people. Neo-fascist terrorists are blamed for the attack, fueling fears that the same group may have placed a bomb on Flight 870. The new evidence leaves investigators with a dilemma. They have circumstantial evidence for both the missile and the bomb theories, but there's no hard proof to determine which one caused the explosion.
We're going to have to say we don't know.
The Commission of the Transportation Ministry worked for 2 years and ended saying that the accident was caused by an explosion, but they were not able to say if the explosion was outside or inside the plane, a bomb or a missile.
Under extreme public pressure to come up with an answer, the Italian government issues a report that only says an explosion of unknown origin brought down the plane.
It's very unsatisfactory, it's distressing. You can't say that any of us like me who care about things like this, or particularly for the families, you can't say they have closure.
Daria Bonfietti continues to demand answers about what happened to her brother. She's not alone in her fight.
Under our guidance, a group of intellectuals wrote a letter to the president of Italy asking why we didn't know the truth about this accident and asking that all the obstacles be removed so the truth could come out.
Gli ostacoli che impedivano alla verità di venire fuori.
The pressure pays off. 5 years after the first inconclusive investigation, the Italian government agrees to launch a new inquiry. In May of 1987, a multi-million-dollar salvage operation recovers the cockpit voice recorder. It could be the break investigators need to find out what really brought down Itavia Flight 870. The cockpit voice recorder allows investigators to hear what the pilot said during the last moments of the flight.
Itavia 870, call back for descent. Thank you for everything. We'll call you for descent 870.
The captain starts to say guarda, Italian for look.
What?
Then the recording abruptly cuts off. Investigators wonder if he caught a glimpse of a missile heading for the plane.
It's what you would expect someone to say if they saw something that was really strange coming toward you.
Conjecture is that he was starting to say, look. But you might say, look at the artificial horizon. Could have been that.
The salvage effort has recovered hundreds of pieces of debris from the sea floor. They're now being reassembled at a hangar near Rome. More than 50% of the aircraft remains missing, but the outline of the plane begins to take shape.
It's a jigsaw puzzle. If you theorized on how the aircraft came apart, the more you can visually build up this picture, the more clear that becomes.
A key piece of debris adds weight to the theory that a missile hit the plane. It has two small holes with edges that bend in, not out. Investigators have also discovered debris in a seat cushion from the cabin. It's from a galley at the front of the plane. If a missile exploded near the front of the plane, it might have blown the piece towards the back. But there's too much wreckage missing to reach a definitive conclusion.
It's not much to go on.
We have some wreckage, we have some evidence from radar, but it's not primary evidence. The real evidence is the bits of aeroplane.
Italian investigators are under intense pressure to announce what blew the plane apart.
People started to say, tell us exactly what happened to this airplane.
It all fits with the missile theory.
They decide to stick their necks out. In 1989, they release an accident report that concludes the explosion was probably caused by a missile fired from an unidentified aircraft. As the first person to advance that theory, reporter Andrea Purgatori feels vindicated.
I was right. I was right in investigating this case, in putting, the truth, the possible truth, piece by piece together.
Per questo e da
Because of this, and only from this moment, we, the relatives of the victims, started to say the DC-9 was hit by a missile.
DC-9 è stato abbattuto da un missile.
But just 1 year later, the entire investigation crumbles when the unthinkable happens. Citing a lack of evidence, 2 Italian investigators retract their opinion that a missile brought down the plane.
We're back at square one.
It's quite rare to have so little certainty about an accident. This is a very extraordinary accident in that respect.
The Italian government orders a 3rd investigation to answer the question once and for all. Did a missile bring down Flight 870, or was it a bomb? They assemble an international group of experts, including veteran British air crash investigator Frank Taylor.
Let's get those set up over there.
The goal that we were presented with was to find the truth, to find out what had actually happened and report on that. And that was fair, that was absolutely splendid, because that's what you do in an investigation. You look at the evidence and try to work out what it means.
Taylor is uniquely qualified to identify evidence of a bomb. He's investigated more than 20 air disasters, including the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. In 1988, Libyan terrorists planted a bomb in the cargo hold of Flight 103. When it exploded, it destroyed the plane, killing 270 people. Engineer Göran Lilja of Sweden is also on Taylor's team.